Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, jambo. Bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We are coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. Please be sure to subscribe to the show on the iHeartRadio app, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Ghana, wherever you find your podcasts. We have two wonderful authors today. Prue McDonell is here to talk about Stargazer, and Deb Gruelle returns to celebrate Sleepy Time Colors. This is a jam-packed episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Before we do invite our guest, Prue McDonell, in, I do want to let you know, we understand that the start of a new school year is stressful in the best of times. But here in September of 2020, kids and teachers are really stressed out. I want to try to help that. I am offering a limited number of schools and classrooms and homeschooling groups an opportunity to book a free virtual performance of my educational magic show, We Will Roar. It's a really fun, interactive show. It's presented live via Zoom. We would love to come into your community no matter where you are in the world. And in September and October, we are offering a limited number of schools, of classrooms, libraries, and like I said, homeschooling groups, an opportunity to book a free performance of this show. Just go to our website, wewillroar.com. Click on the contact button you'll find at the bottom of the page. We'll let you know what happens next. Joining us right now from Robinson in New South Wales, Australia. She is coming to us from the rainforest. Please welcome to the show the author of Stargazer, a Reading with Your Kids certified great read, Prue McDonell. Prue, how are you?
I'm really well, thank you, Jed.
Prue and I were just talking about the fact that she lives in the rainforest and how magical that must be. And so it's no surprise to me that you were able to write such a magical book like Stargazer.
Well, it certainly helps to live in such a beautiful place. You can conjure up all sorts of fairies and goblins and things like that. Yes.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that our panel, we have a panel of educators, parents, and kids who will review books that are sent in to us, and if they believe that a book is worthy of 4 or 5 out of 5 stars, it becomes a certified great read. Stargazer earned all 5 stars from our panel. And one of the things that we heard from so many of the panelists is that they loved all those images of the fairies and the fauna that you created and wrote about in Stargazer.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, I had a wonderful illustrator as well. He kind of turned those characters, brought them to life.
Yeah. So what was the initial inspiration for the book?
It really came from childhood memories of my grandmother's house. She lived on a lake, and I spent all my school holidays there. She had this beautiful garden. It was just a wild garden full of flowers and birds. And I always, as a child, I just thought there were fairies in that garden. I was convinced. I remember taking I read that if you had a thimble and you put some dewdrops and a spider web in the thimble that you would see a fairy, which I did at dawn. Yep. I swear I saw fairies in that garden.
Tell our listeners about the story that they'll experience reading Stargazer, please.
Okay, so Stargazer it's about a star sprite called Star, who is called to an enchanted garden by the spirit of light. And through the book, we basically go on her journey of self-discovery, where she learns about who she is through the other sprites and the other creatures in the garden. And she also learns about the importance of the great beings of the sky, the sun who gives her life with warmth and light, moon who brings light into the darkness. She sees her as her protector. It's also just about the beauty of nature and how important it is to protect our environment. This is a microcosm in this story of a macrocosm of our whole world. So, yeah, that's what it's all about.
That's such an important concept, I think, to share with kids. And kids, I think, are especially receptive to that concept of caring for the world and being aware of how our actions can impact the world.
Absolutely, and I think today more than ever, the younger they start trying to protect their environment, even if it's just in the gardening, just looking at the animals, protecting those, that's a good start for as they grow up and learn to look after the planet, because it's our planet, that's all we have. Mm-hmm. Can't take off to Mars or somewhere else. So we should look after it, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things I think is it's very empowering for kids, because kids, as we know, they're small. Everybody around them is so much taller than them. They're constantly being told what to do, having people do things for them. If we can show them how they can do something to protect something that's so important, our world, and how their actions can have an impact on it, I really think that can empower our kids and help them understand that, yeah, they can do great things with their lives.
Absolutely. Children just have so much potential. They have so much power. I think a lot of them don't realize that. That as little beings, they're not so indoctrinated, mm-hmm. and they can think outside the box a bit, and I think that should be encouraged.
Yeah.
And I hope the book encourages them to do that. To think outside the box, yeah.
Now, Stargazer is your debut book. What's been the reaction of first off, what was the reaction of your family and friends when they discovered that you had written this beautiful book?
Oh, they was just so excited that I'd finally got it out, because it was a long time coming, that book. I had written it when I was in my 20s. It sat in a drawer all these years. And then when I got over living life as it was and retired, I decided that maybe it was worthwhile putting out there. So I rewrote it a bit, modernized it, brought it up to date with the world. And put it out there. So they were extremely excited for me that I actually did it.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Now, what was it that finally kind of gave you that push to, dust off that original manuscript, bring it up to date, and then to actually, because submitting your book, whether you're self-publishing it or submitting it to a traditional publisher, it takes a lot of courage, to actually put it out there into the world. What was it that gave you that push and that courage to do it at this time in your life?
Well, I think it really was, I wanted to honor my grandmother. People pass away, and all what they've given you. My grandmother was a very significant person in my life, and I think most of all, I wanted to put this book out about her garden, and I dedicated it to my nan, so that I think that's what really inspired me later on. I said, I have to do this. I have to leave some sort of legacy behind in honor of her.
Beautiful. And you're mentioning garden. My mind is anybody who listens to the show knows my mind is a little bit weird. And it goes in different places as I'm talking to guests, and as you keep mentioning the garden, this beautiful garden. My wife has a beautiful garden here in our home, in front of our home, and there are some years, and we don't always know what it is, because there's, we do things and she does things intentionally, but it's part of nature. So nature kind of comes and plays around in her garden sometimes. And there are years, and this year is one of them, where just these wildflowers just grow, and they are so tall, and this year was really wonderful, because it seemed as if it was choreographed. As soon as one group of plants bloomed and the blooms were starting to fall, there was another group of plants that were starting to bloom, and so we've had this explosion of color in front of our home all summer long. Something that was really a bright spot during this really unusual summer.
That sounds wonderful. That's nature. Nature will just keep producing as long as we give it that opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, what's it like living in a rainforest?
Well, we have like wombats, lots of wombats who love to dig up the whole property. They're very cute, quite destructive, but they're very sweet little creatures when you look at them. Yeah, so we have lots of those. We have wallabies hopping around the place, and the rainforest is full of birds, beautiful little birds. Yeah, it's just very peaceful.
That's wonderful. And one of the things about Australia that's so fascinating, you were mentioning wombats and wallabies and creatures that we won't see here in North America, but you also have these amazingly colorful birds that we won't see here in North America as well.
True, we have cockatoos and parrots that are brilliantly colored. Absolutely brilliantly colored. Yeah, we have those as well. Yes.
Yeah. Now, did you grow up in the rainforest?
No, I didn't. I actually grew up in a town called Singleton, which is really country, very dry, boiling hot in the summer, freezing cold in the winter. A long way from here. Yeah. A very different environment.
This is really wonderful. Now, I mentioned that the book is a certified great read. What other kind of response have you heard from any of the readers from around the world that have read the book so far?
Just that they really love the story itself. They just find the story quite engaging. The kids seem to love reading it. The pictures particularly, people comment a lot about the illustrations.
Yeah.
Which bring out the characters. And, I think basically it's just an enjoyable read, which is what I'm hoping. It was a good story for a start and great pictures, as well as maybe teaching something as well to the children.
Absolutely. Tell me, what kind of conversations, beyond just taking care of the planet, what are the kind of conversations do you think families can have as they read Stargazer together?
Well, I'm hoping that, Stargazer is like a family of sprites and butterflies and spiders and birds. They're all different, but they're having to live together and get along with each other and understand each other, which is what families are all about. There's a lot of individual differences within families, and I think families have to learn to, respect that difference within themselves. So, and also the importance of loving and supporting each other. In the story, there's a part where the Arum Lily Santi, the sprite, she gets taken away by the shadow, and Star is just devastated. And then you have the Rose Sisters coming in and comforting her, which is what family is all about, isn't it? Loving and supporting and helping children realize their full potential.
Absolutely. Now, tell me, you mentioned that you originally wrote Stargazer many years ago. Now that the book is out there, now that it's getting such great response from folks, is there another book coming from Prue McDonell?
Yes, there is. Yes. It's called The Chuckle Wobbles. It's a very different sort of story, but it's about finding happiness within yourself. So that's happening hopefully towards the end of this year.
Well, that's wonderful. Prue, I've had a wonderful time talking to you about the rainforest and Australia and the animals, but most of all, I've had a great time speaking to you about Stargazer. Thanks very much for. Before I go, is there a place where folks can go to connect with you online?
Yeah, I have a website. I just have to put in Prue McDonell and it'll come up, or www.pruemcdonell.com, and it'll come up.
And you can see lots of the illustrations there on the book, and they really are fabulous illustrations.
Aren't they beautiful? Yeah. I was so lucky to find such a great illustrator here in Australia. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, we've been having a great time speaking to the author of a Reading with Your Kids Certified Great Read. The name of the book is Stargazer, and the author is Prue McDonell. Prue, thanks so much for being part of the show.
Thank you so much, Jed. Thanks for having me. Very, very appreciative.
From the rainforest in Australia back to the beautiful United States, we are excited to welcome back to the show the grandniece of the creator of the Raggedy Ann and Andy series, Deb Gruelle. Deb, how are you?
Thanks so much, Jed. I'm doing well. In the middle of craziness, I'm doing well. Thank you.
Yes, it is. It is in the middle of craziness. You know, I remember, Deb, when the quarantine started, I was, kind of keeping count and saying, we're in day 15 of the great quarantine of 2020. I don't know what day we're in month 4 or 5. I don't even know what month we're in these days. It's
I wrote around the calendar each day, and now forget it. They just all kind of run together. But
it is. It's a crazy, crazy time that we're living through, and I can't imagine what it would be like being the parent of a 3 or 4 or 5-year-old at this time. I imagine that it must be incredibly challenging just, having to entertain and educate the kids all day long without it. There's some parents who don't have any support at all, and that must be incredibly difficult. But also just finding ways to comfort them and to let them know that things are going to be okay. And I imagine that that's something that a book like Sleepy Time Colors could help with.
That's what I'm hoping. That's one of my goals in writing children's books, is that there's anxiety felt by parents and children, and that if there's anything that I can write in a book that would just help give some feeling of security to kids and even their parents, that if the book can become a conduit of that feeling of security and love from between a parent and a child, that's a huge goal, but that's one of my goals.
Yeah. So tell us about the story we'll experience with Sleepy Time Colors.
It is a going to bed book, and it's rhyming, but it talks about the excitement that kids have with getting their favorite pajamas on, and just the cozy, cuddly feeling that they look forward to at the end of a day. And then each one has different animals on their pajamas and their favorite colors. So kids learn colors at the same time as this comforting rhyme that ends up in a very cozy place.
You're right. A lot of times kids just take comfort in those normal everyday routines of coming home and putting on their jammies and curling up at the same time, reading a story with the kid. That's, I think, one of the biggest benefits of reading with our kids, especially our young kids. Yes, they learn their colors. Yes, they develop a vocabulary. But they, more than anything else, it just becomes this really comforting, reassuring tradition or routine in their day that gives helps create a lot of stability in their lives.
Yes, I had a friend who I was just talking to recently that she's dealt with a fair amount of actually some extreme hardships and anxiety and depression in her life, and she told me the story the other day that. And her eyes lit up when she talked about it. She said, I remember my mom reading my favorite book. It was called, she remembered the name Scat Scat. And, it was about a little cat, and she made the words come to life. And every night I even looked forward to bedtime because my mom would read that one special book to me, and that was our special time. And I hated when the book would end, and I'd yell, read it again. And sometimes she would. And she just remembered that special time of connection between her and her mom, and she remembered it 50 years later. And so I even checked, and the book is out of print now, but it was written by Sally Francis. And I know that as parents that there's time when we go through the motions of reading the book, especially if it's again. But this also encouraged me that and it should encourage other parents too, that for my friend, even after all these years, she remembers the special connection and how she felt secure and cozy, during that time with her mom. And it's a lofty goal, but that's my hope as a children's book writer, that I want to write books that it's not the book itself, but it can become a vehicle or a conduit for that, connection between a parent and a child, even when chaos is happening in the rest of the world.
You bring up a good point. I don't think that we've we've certainly thought about it and implied it, but there's a real kind of partnership that I don't think we're conscious of between an author and a parent or a caregiver who is going to read the book to their children, especially books for real young children who aren't able to read. You described your friend's parent bringing those words to life. So, yeah, the story is really important, and the pictures and the illustrations are really important. But the parent's role in that partnership is also really important, because if they're just sitting there and just, okay, I got to get through this so I can get back to my spreadsheet and do the work I need to do, that's not something that kids are going to remember fondly 50 years from now. They might remember it, but they won't remember it fondly like your friend does. But if we're there and we're invested in it, and we're using our voice to make the funny sounds and to really make the characters come alive, make the words come alive, that is something that's going to stay with kids forever.
Yes, and you can even choose books that are short, and there definitely are times that you want to, as a parent, do that wonderful thing, teach, give a connection. But even if you look in your child's eyes, you take a moment to just be in this bubble with them and give them a hug and sit them on your lap, and just that time of, it's you and me alone in the world right now. And that just is going to give them the ability to settle down, to be able to go to sleep and know I'm loved, I'm taken care of. And especially if that's a part of a bedtime routine, that my friend would look forward to bedtime because she knew that special time with her mom was coming.
Yeah. It's interesting that your friend remembers the book that she loved to have her parents read to her so much. I remember my favorite book growing up was a book called Mr. Bear Goes to Boston by Marion Flood French. And it was just, just a silly story about a bear that came down from the northern Maine woods and visited all the different sites that were around me here in Boston. And, it's almost 100 years ago, and I still remember it.
That's so cute.
Yeah.
Yes, and it takes the same amount of time to stop your brain from the spreadsheet or whatever is going on and focus on the child for that same amount of pages in the book, rather than just calling it in. But I also think that, just to give parents a break, that there will be times you just call it in as you're doing the reading. And I think it's the majority of time that matters, that if it happens once in a while that you do that, the kids will gloss over that. But it's the intent that you carry with you in that special time.
And the neat thing is, and this is something that's important to remember, when we take, when we have a bazillion things going on, and it really takes a lot of effort for us to pick up that book and read and really invest in and become animated as we're reading it, we think we have absolutely no energy. But that experience, in my experience, investing the time, investing the energy, by the time we finish ending the book, we still may be exhausted, but we're going to have a smile on our face.
Yes, and I think that remembering that you are feeding into the life of this child. Sometimes you think, okay, it's just a book. It's just, I have to get through this and read this book. But it is like a recipe. It's a piece that you're adding to this bigger ending, the bigger life of your child. And it'll give them something to carry into their life stresses that will make them stronger and more secure as they're dealing with the stress that inevitably comes in life.
As you're writing, are you aware that you're doing much more than just putting together a cute little rhyming story, that you're actually part of this collaboration with the parent, that you are actually helping that parent raise the child?
I think I got some of that from my great uncle Johnny Gruelle, because I've gone to some of the Raggedy Ann rallies that are in Arcola, Illinois, and people have come there and they have buttons down their shirts of the 20 years they've come, and that they have this thought of this is Raggedy Ann and Andy are about caring and love and kindness, and they want to emulate that. And so looking at that, it puts me in this state of wonder of how could a book or a series of books do that? And it becomes bigger than what it started out.
As we established in our last interview with Deb, her great uncle was the creator of the Raggedy Ann and Andy series, and that must be incredible. Knowing that, is that intimidating for you? Thinking, oh my goodness, my great uncle created this phenomenon that's lasted, almost a century. Or do you take, oh, I have it. I got that gene, and hopefully he passed some of that on to me.
Actually, this year is Raggedy Andy's 100th birthday, so it really is a century. But no, I never dreamed of any kind of connection like that. I just thought, I think the one thing that helped was that I knew somebody who wrote and had gotten it published, so it seemed like a possibility.
What's new? What's next coming from Deb Gruelle? And I know I hate to put pressure on you, just you're celebrating Sleepy Time Colors, but there's a lot going on. Your imagination is wonderful. So I imagine that you may have another project percolating.
I've got some other books that I've written that are out being shopped right now. So we'll see what happens with them. And for the book launch, I'm excited because because I'm pairing up with the Pajama Program. Have you heard of them?
I haven't.
They provide pajamas and books for kids in need, and they're a nonprofit organization. And it started because the founder of it was helping out and saw kids. They were helping out with parents who were incarcerated. And the kids went into another room and just went to sleep in their clothes. And she said, do they have pajamas? And the people running it said no. So she brought in 12 pairs of pajamas the next time. And one of the girls asked, what are these? And she said, oh, they're pajamas. You can wear them when you go to sleep. And she said, I get to keep them? And she thought, every kid deserves pajamas and a book to read. And so that started this whole nonprofit organization.
Wow, what a beautiful project. Is there a website where folks can go to learn more about that?
Pajamaprogram.org.
We've had a great time speaking to the author of Sleepy Time Colors, Deb Gruelle. Deb, thanks for being back on the show.
Thanks so much, Jed. I really appreciate it.
Please be sure to join us for the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guest would be Becky Cummings. She'll be here to celebrate the magic of me. Speaking of celebrate, we once again want to congratulate Prue McDonell on her book Stargazer being named a Reading with Your Kids certified great read. If you would like to submit your book to our certified great read panel, all you need to do is go to our website, readingwithyourkids.com. Click on the Author Services button. That'll tell you all the information about this really, really helpful program. You can even submit an application from that page. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so very wonderful. Of course, I want to thank our guest, Prue McDonell, and also want to thank Deb Gruelle. I want to thank my incredible team, starting with my producer, Fatima Khan. I want to thank my awesome author ambassador, Peggy Cotto. I want to thank my amazing daughter, Alejandra. She is doing so many things. We're going to be rolling out some great new programs, great new logos, great new shows. I can't wait to share it. Oh, hey, I absolutely want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. I want to thank Augie the doggy for having my back here in the studio, but most of all, I want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today, and as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking through the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.